Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain.
This episode of the Energy Stoners Cafe is sponsored by Passionate World Talk Radio and Lillian Caldwell. PassionateWorldTalkRadio.com. Welcome to the Energy Stoners Cafe. My name is Toni Quest, and I'm really happy that you're here. I like to interview the most interesting people I can find on the planet. So grab a cup of coffee, sit down, relax, and listen. You're going to find that these guests are so intriguing, you'll wonder why you didn't know about them before. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Energy Stoners Cafe. Tonight I have a wonderful guest, and we kind of stumbled upon each other on the internet on one of the social media networks that's really for business people. But she, like I, know that the real place for an artist is really on these business network, these business social network sites. That's where artists need to live. And that's how we found each other. Her name is Ingrid Griffith, and she is a Broadway actress. And she is actually unemployed, but she was able to reinvent herself and take the bull by the horns and make things happen. And that's why I decided to interview her, because I'm so impressed. Welcome to the show, Ingrid.
Hi, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing really well. And I love the clip that I saw of your performance on your one-woman show that's called Unbossed, Unbowed. How did you come up with this idea? I think it's really unique, and you're actually portraying a woman that's a historical person that is somewhat timely for what we're going through right now in the United States and in the world. But I think it's particularly timely considering the emergence of the power of women.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so tell the audience more about your show and why you chose this particular character.
Sure. Well, it's interesting that you're saying how timely it is, because this idea started about 6 years ago. And I had just completed my first one-woman show and was touring it. And I saw how how interactive solo show performance could be, how immersive, and how it could be intimate, in the sense that it's like me and the audience are like taking this ride together, and we're actually like on the journey, and they're watching me play all these characters, and they sort of like know the characters. After a while, you could see they're like totally immersed, and the story's being told in an efficient manner, in a way that, there are no big production sets or anything, but it's just me, the characters, and the audience. And there was something about that intrigued me, because, as an artist, I always feel that back then used to feel that I had to wait for somebody to call me to tell me to do something. And then even if I had an idea for a player or something short to do, it had to be, well, how are we going to cast it? How are we going to pay the cast? How are we going to get production? The sets. Everything had to do with money, which you're saying. It was interesting how you introduced me on this, that we were both on this business platform, because it really is a business, So there was something about when I started doing my first solo show called Demerara Gold. We can talk about that a little later. But
okay.
That sort of inspired me to start researching Shirley Chisholm. I did not know a lot about her. I remember as like a college student seeing her on television way after she was like, in the limelight. And I was surprised that this Black woman was on television, but was well known, was a politician. And then I would be struck by how smart she was, and how clever she was, and how articulate she was. She had this, she was brilliant. And it did strike me, because I never saw that on television. It wasn't back then. I wasn't seeing a lot of women like her. And she actually reminded me of my like grandmother's sisters, like my great aunts, who were like teachers and, music teachers. She had that teacherly look,
Yes.
But in an odd way. And I couldn't imagine that she would be on television. So I heard about a documentary that came out in 2005, and I saw it. It was about Shirley Chisholm. And I was even more inspired to find out more about her, because what I saw and what I heard was amazing. And I saw the journey that she took as a young politician. First, she was a teacher, then she became a politician, and she didn't really want to, but she needed to help make change happen. You know how we're driven to do something, and it's not necessarily the only thing you want to do, and my story was to show what the personal life was and what the public life was, and the sacrifices she made in her personal life to have this public life.
I don't think people really knew about the sacrifices that she made. And I think that it's really excellent that you bring that up, because a lot of times people that go into politics are somewhat self-serving. But what I remember about her is how engaged she was in the community.
Very much so. And then as I researched, I started to see, because my whole thing was, how did she get so involved in the community, And of course, she lived in Brooklyn. She was from Bed-Stuy. Her parents were, her mom was a seamstress. Her dad was like an unskilled worker. He worked in a factory. These were poor people from the Caribbean who met in Brooklyn and got married and had 4 kids. And Shirley Chisholm was the oldest of 4 girls. And I think she just saw the circumstances. She felt the circumstances. She saw what her parents were going through to keep the family afloat. And I think all those things made her become the person that she became, why she was driven to politics, why she was driven to social change, why she felt she had to do her part. And the story starts from there. The story starts from her as a kid, listening to her father talk to the neighbors and his fellow workers. They would congregate in their little flat. And the father would start to tell the workers and his friends, like, why they need to go back out there and talk to, the representative for the district. Why we need to fight for getting heat up in the morning. The heat doesn't come on until what time in the morning, when the children are all gone. We need to be able to get heat at 6 o'clock when we're getting up preparing for school and work. How does that not happen in our neighborhood? How come the garbage isn't picked up in our neighborhood? So the simple things that we expect and we want, especially when we relocate and we're looking for something better. Those were the things that they saw that were lacking in the North. The Black people that came from the South to the North saw it. The Caribbeans that came from wherever, Guyana, Barbados, Jamaica, who came to the big cities like New York City, they started to feel racism. They started to realize what that was. The American dream was very hard to get and almost impossible. And they wanted to know why they couldn't get a piece of the apple pie, which is one of the lines from Shirley's dad. He's like, we too want a piece of the apple pie, and that was it, So I kind of went backwards to kind of understand the woman that she became.
And what was her maiden name?
Her maiden name was St. Hill. Shirley St. Hill, yes. And her dad was from Guyana and her mom was from Barbados.
And I noticed in the clip you have like this kind of little cute little exchange with Gloria Steinem.
Yes. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because Shirley Chisholm was about forming coalitions. She figured to get things done, we need to be in it together. This whole isolating each other is part of the plan to keep us from getting any power and strength. There's strength and power. And if we're like, this is my group and this is your group, and that's not how it's going to work. So she was definitely into forming coalitions, and she was part of the feminist movement. She was part of the Black women's movement, the civil rights movement, CORE. She was in every group you can think of that was being organized and working for change in the 1960s. So it was interesting when she was running for the presidency of the United States in 1972, she just assumed that the women, her group, wanted the feminist movement. All those women will support her because, we're a group together supporting women and minorities. We're the minority, and we need to work together and support each other. But, politics is politics. And those women, like Gloria Steinem and Bella Abzug and other women, they too had their own agendas, So they were, although they were with Shirley in the cause in terms of getting women's rights and fighting for woman power, they also had their things that they needed to get done. And they were wheeling and dealing in the back room with somebody else and saying, well, if you don't vote for Shirley Chisholm, I could do this for you, for your program, or whatever programs you're also fighting for, or working towards. So it showed you on the show shows you what coalitions are about, why we need them, but it also show the other level of what politics is about.
Now, how long does the streaming show run? What is it, about an hour or so?
It's actually less. The show was 80 minutes long as a theatrical performance, a live theatrical performance. And I have since, during COVID, I have condensed the 80-minute show to a 40-minute film. So it has been condensed about half. So the whole story is not fully there, but I needed to find a way to make sure the audience stays engaged. And because it's a film performance and not a live event, there's something about that format, the film format, that needs to move quicker. It doesn't hold the same. It's not the same as a live theater experience. So my plan, and this has happened as I went along, of course, I didn't even know all this until I started shooting. And then I saw that, well, this kind of could be cut, this could be chopped and just jump to the next scene right away. So these were things I learned over the past 9-10 months. Back then I was not a filmmaker or even a director. But I just wanted this story to be told, and I couldn't wait any longer. Who knows when COVID will go, pass, and it is going to pass, but all that will take time for theater to come back. And I really wanted this story to be told now. So
did you have an editor, or did you edit it yourself?
Oh, yes. I had two editors. I had a small team, and that was very, very helpful. I could not do it without the team. Some people dropped out for various reasons, money issues. They had things to do, more pressing things to do. And, this was a serious, low budget project. So there were times when people had to, take care of their bottom line. So some people left, director left, and then I've met a filmmaker, and then he did some editing, and then he got work, more, not better work, but money-making work that he had to put. So he had to put this aside, but I couldn't put this aside because this is my baby.
Yes, of course.
So I found another filmmaker who's an editor who did an extremely amazing job and I'm very proud of the finished product.
Your promo is beautiful. I have to say, it made me want to see it like right away.
Excellent. That's the film editor. He is an amazing person. His name is John Navarro. And I met him through a fellow actor, and I was thrilled. I felt lucky to have met the people I met as I was doing this project.
And let me ask you, if someone wants to go and see this performance, I know that you're selling tickets to it and it streams online. How can someone go about getting tickets to the show?
So there's a website. It's a stellartickets.com, stellartickets.com. And if you type in tiny, TINY URL /com, and then you put Unbossed Unbowed.
Unbossed Unbowed.
Yes, you will find it. So it's tiny URL /com.unbossed unbowed, UNBOSSED UNBOWED.
Now, is this an on-demand, like if they just go there now and they can get a ticket? And once they have the ticket, is there a specific time that someone has to go and view it?
No. Once they get the ticket, they Stellar Tickets, the website, they send the person a link, because the person has to fill out, their email address and such. So they'll send that person the link in an email, and then the person can view it whenever they want, anytime between now and February 28th, anytime, any day until the end of February. So it's streaming on demand. Once you get your ticket and once they send you that link, which is like a ticket, that's you can view it any time that works for you.
That's beautiful. I think it's remarkable that you just like stepped up to the plate and did a one-woman show. It's a very unique way of dealing with COVID, especially for performing artists.
Well, that was the thing, because I was isolated. I still am, and I'm definitely being careful, and I'm definitely sequestering, and I don't have my vaccines yet, and it's probably not going to happen until summer or sometime, hopefully sooner. But I have to work. I have to do what I do, my art. And so it kind of got me in this mode of getting up and making things happen, but in my space, and it's pretty much had to do with me doing it. Whether I look at the script, cut the scenes, things like that, finding an editor, finding a filmmaker, finding whatever, it was me, finding a set, because in some, there's a part of the show that I've created a little set, and it was like, I had to create. And it was just a great way to kill the, I don't want to say to kill the time, but for the time to do this for myself, given the fact that I had all this time on my hands, so much free time. And I was just busy, and I just was happy to be busy making this project come to fruition.
So Ingrid, what did you do prior to the pandemic? What was your career life like?
Well, it was a lot of traveling, because there's a solo show I mentioned that I was doing before that had me going from when I was in New York, I would be traveling throughout the metropolitan area, the boroughs, and sharing a solo show that I had written about 6 years ago with college students, high school kids, and middle school kids. And then when I was not doing that in New York, I was traveling outside of the country, because I also went to the Caribbean with it. It's a solo show I wrote it's personal. It's about my little mostly autobiographical, and it's about a Caribbean girl's immigrant experience, what it was like to see her parents leave without her when they were living in Guyana, and then having to wait for a visa to rejoin them in America, and then what it was like when she came to America, all the dreams and all the hopes and all the things that she wished for and thought would happen didn't happen. And so you see this journey about what went wrong and what went right. There were some things that went right, but also what went mostly wrong. Because, as a kid, when you're 7 and 12, you're dreaming, right? You're wishing for things. You don't quite know the reality. And I rejoined my parents when I was 12 years old. So they were different people. I was a different person, and life was different in America, and it wasn't the life that I knew, that I heard about. So there were real practical things that had to be in place and reality that I had to be aware of, that I witnessed, that were not that kind of like were not anything I expected. One was the acclimating. It was much harder than I thought it would be. I didn't even think of that I would be this odd person, No.
You never know you're going to be the outsider until you are the outsider. That I could talk to you about that sometime.
And you know what? We all can. We all have been in that in some way or form. And it's what you do with that story, and what do you do with those experiences. And I think that's what the show is called Demerara Gold, and that it's about that child, which mostly it's about me, but of course I've created this person that comes out of it because she has to, and she had a dream, and she wanted this life to be a certain way, and she's pushing forward no matter what is happening in reality. She's going to make something of herself. So it's thought-provoking because it's about the immigrant experience, but it's about the reality of what happens when people are thrown into another world and have to now come up. They got to start to float. Some people don't float right away.
It's true. Do you have any siblings that actually went through this journey with?
I do.
You do? Okay, so it wasn't just you alone. Tell me about that.
I have a sister, an older sister, and then it's me. Then I have two younger brothers, but one passed away.
Oh, sorry.
So it's my sister, myself, and now the youngest brother. But the one right after me, he actually committed suicide.
Oh my God.
It's not in the play, my solo show, but it's a story that I'm also writing because it was just too powerful. It was just too much for the solo show, and it had a lot to do with mental illness. It had a lot to do with circumstances. It had to do with the move from one country to the next. It had to do with racism. It had to do with all the things that we deal with today, and some people can hang in and kind of beat it, and some people can't. And he just couldn't do it, and he saw things that he was sort of, sometimes there's a family cycle. There's a cycle of domestic abuse in my family. And he, as a young adult, was doing the same thing, which was not healthy. And so it's a little heavier than what my solo show is about, the first one. But there are hints of how we can, as children watching domestic abuse, how it can take a toll on us as well. Even if we're not being victimized, we're not being hurt physically, but we're still being damaged.
There's an emotional trauma to that.
Absolutely.
There's no question about it. Definitely there's an emotional trauma, for everybody.
For everybody.
If you love anybody in that mix, whether you love them or hate them, you're going to be traumatized seeing anyone be abused, especially if you care about them. That's a terrible thing to witness.
And especially when you're helpless, you're depending on them.
Right. There's nothing you can do.
And it's funny because when I was touring the show, and it's very entertaining, to tell you the truth. There's something, and I think that's what also Unbossed and Unbowed. Besides Shirley Chisholm's fight, she's a toughie, and she fought a lot. She was called herself Fighting Shirley, and it's because she was not letting anything go by. She was fighting for our rights. She was fighting for people way, way, way back, even when she was we didn't even know who she was, when she was this young woman as a teacher. You see her in the community doing things and speaking up. But there's something entertaining about Unbossed and Unbowed, just as there was with my first solo show. So although there's this provocative theme about fight and rights and racism and all that, there's this other story underneath. And it's the thing about humanity. We all have another side to us. And that levity is important. And that's what I try to bring to the solo show performances. The characters can be, they're going through a lot, but there's also some levity. There's also some lightness. You also feel them and find their souls,
And there's good music. You had a little background music there, which was kind of retro hip,
Exactly. And everybody's saying, I love the music. But I'm very much into, I'm just into creating, and I really love music. And I think the music sometimes the music of that time got me to writing some scenes. It just propelled me to really remember what was going on or understand, because I wasn't of that time, like in the 50s and all that, but I knew what was going on, and those songs helped me. Yeah.
What kind of headspace do you get in when you personify an iconic figure like Shirley Chisholm? What kind of headspace do you get in for that?
It's interesting you ask, because as an actor, I have to see, as a writer, I see her as one way, right? And as a person who was attracted to doing the research, I saw her in another way. And as the actor, I had to lose a lot of those things and just let her be a human being. So as the person who was thinking about writing about Shirley Chisholm, I'm in awe of Shirley Chisholm. That's why I wanted to write about her. I saw a woman and I was like, I've never seen a woman like that before in television, in that kind of position. And I am intrigued about how she got there, because there's something with her spirit that I like, and something that I feel, I can be that too. So that's the awe. And then in the research, I start seeing the other stuff that we don't really read or hear in the news, the troubles she went through, her circumstances, the fact that she had to go back to Barbados. She was sent back to her mom's mother for 7 years because the family could not afford, the husband and wife couldn't afford to have the children in Brooklyn and work. And that her being isolated from her parents for 7 years. And then, so these are traumatic things. Once again, as we were talking about Demerara Gold. This is a human being. This is a woman that could be you or me. It could be anybody that just saw and went through things that were painful, that were probably hard for her to accept, that made her angry, sad, that made her not have some certain choices. She wanted to go to better school. She had the IQ, she had the skills, she had the grades, but her parents couldn't afford to get her to those schools, even though she got scholarships. So she ended up going to Brooklyn College. Mm-hmm. What's that like when you want to get out, when you want to go to Yale? And I'm saying Yale because it's one of the best schools. And, once you get out of Yale, you're going to have contacts and it's a different world you're going into, right? Mm-hmm. And you're meeting people like yourself. You're meeting people that are not yourself, but you're going to be part of that mix, right? And then to know that, well, my parents can't afford it. Yes, you got a scholarship, but you didn't have enough scholarship money because you're going to need a car. You're going to need this. We don't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
So these were things. And, as a teenager, you remember things that you wanted to do that you couldn't do because of your circumstances. I remember those well.
I do.
Exactly. So those are the things I bring to her when I become her. Because she is a human being with all these experiences like mine. If she's a star, if she's an icon right now, that's not how her life was like. You know what I mean? It was like, how does an icon live? Well, here's how an icon lived. She lived in Bed-Stuy. She lived above a laundromat. She wore a chain, as a kid. She took she's the oldest of 3 sisters. And she had to wear a chain around her neck to open the door to get in the house. Once they got in the apartment, they locked the door. She couldn't leave the house. Her parents had to cook for them until the parents come home at 8:00 because they had 2 jobs each. I mean, this is the life she had. I can identify with it, and I'm sure you can.
I can definitely identify with that.
So that is an icon, but she becomes an icon. But this is a woman that has a life and had hurt and pain and difficulties. And, she was not a terribly attractive woman. And that's very important to me because in America, that's a big deal. And as a politician, that's a big deal. Not only is she Black, she's a woman. And not only is she a woman, she doesn't look like Diane Carroll.
Right. Or Diana Ross. Or
Diana Ross. So what does that mean? That's a big deal. You know what I mean? And those are the things. And then she's also 5'3", 90 pounds.
No, I remember her because I'm a woman of a certain age. And I remember when she ran for president and I was in high school at the time. And I was just amazed. I said, wow, I can't believe she's doing this. It gave, as a young girl, I was about maybe 16 years old. My math is bad, 72. Yeah, I was still in high school. And I remember feeling, wow, anybody could do it. Maybe anybody could do this.
Exactly. And that is the point. That is what she did. She pushed the envelope, and she showed people like us that we can do it too. But it was not an easy fight. But you will be fighting too. But it's okay because we all are in this fight. But she came after so many other women that were fighting as well from way, way back. So it's one of these things that we just keep standing on each other's shoulders, but we have to put ourselves out there for the next generation to see that we are going to make a change. It's going to happen. And it's happening. Kamla Harris.
Yes, Kamala Harris.
It happens. And, in a way, sometimes the story, because it's a truthful story, I can't lie about what happened. Sometimes you wonder, did anything really change? I mean, how much change did she? Because she's fighting for the things we're still fighting for, and that was over 50 years ago.
It's very true. I think that a lot of times people think that anyone can do it. If you have an education, it's like automatic. No, you have to have at least have an education, and you have to be this amount better than the average, let's say, Caucasian or white counterpart or male counterpart to get half of what they have.
To get half of what they have.
That's why I was raised on those words. You have to, that's why I think a lot of people, and you may or may not agree with this, a lot of women and a lot of minority people can get into this burnout thing because we have to push so hard.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you said that.
We push so hard that it's exhausting.
Because Shirley Chisholm in the story that she gets exhausted. I have her scenes with her, what happens when she gets burned out, because she's going, and she's hoping, like we all are. We're hoping that things get easier, or we're hoping that things move forward a little quicker so we don't have to be burned out. So the next generation could come and they take it to the next level. And she's like fighting this fight and nothing is happening. Things are reverting.
Well, we're passing the baton.
At some point in her career, things were going backwards. And she's like, I can't stop now. The things I was fighting for are now being erased. I got to keep going. I got to go to a higher level in government. I have to run to the presidency of the United States. That's the only way we can stop this.
You kind of wonder sometimes if all of their effort, I don't want to dilute it, but sometimes you want to have confidence. I'm going to reword this. Have confidence in the fact that what these other women did make a difference for us. I like in the promo that you were talking to Gloria Steinem. I said, boy, that is like, it was just so slick and so cool that you're talking to Gloria Steinem. And
right.
To think that those two people actually did speak about what was wrong in the world.
They held two heads. They were part of the women's movement. They were part of the group. They were part of the founders. That's what I mean. They were the founders.
Bella Abzug.
Shirley Chisholm. Betty Friedan.
Yes.
Friedan.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think those four.
Yeah. Bella Abzug spoke at my college graduation as an undergrad. She was the keynote speaker with the hat and everything.
Where did you go for undergrad?
New York Institute of Technology.
Got it. Yeah. Shirley Chisholm went to Brooklyn College, and a lot of people know her from speaking at colleges, because that was her way of connecting to the young people and telling them how important it was to get involved in social change and to make a difference. So she was, I have a scene in the show when she's at an all-Black women's, a college group of students invited her, and they're asking her questions about why she's running. And it's an interesting scene because I include Maxine Waters in it.
Oh, wow. Because she would be of that generation, really,
exactly.
I think.
A little bit. I think Maxine Waters was a little bit older, but she could have been in college then. And where she's questioning Shirley Chisholm, and as we all know, Maxine Waters is very much like Shirley Chisholm today.
She does remind me of Shirley Chisholm, and I've never said it. I also want to just mention another thing. In your One Woman play, I'm sure that you address the fact that the male voice, even in social justice, has a tendency to dilute the woman's voice in social justice.
Absolutely. Yes, it's in there because that's all Shirley Chisholm went up against. It was a male-dominant world. It is a male-dominant, but in terms of politics, every other politician, they were all men. In local politics, all Black men she was dealing with, and they were like all white men. They were the same. Men are men in the sense that they saw her as a woman back then, as a woman that should not be in politics, number one. And then they saw her as a woman that should not even think of leading. Like, you want to run against me? I don't think so. So there's a scene with her and one of the leaders of a Black organization in Brooklyn. And she's a member, but then she wants to run for the leadership position. And there's a scene with her and the leader saying, really? And she's saying, listen, it's not about a woman thing. This is about me having skills. This about me knowing what we can do differently. This is about strategy. This is about coming around this whole thing in a different way. This is about my intellect and my talent and my skills. we forget this woman. And he's like, yeah, really? I don't think so. It's not going to happen here. It's not going to happen here. So I do have that scene, and I have a number of scenes. She had, like, all her life, throughout her career, she was fighting with men because they could not accept her in the position she was in or the position she wanted to be. She was challenging them. She wanted their position because she thought she could do a better job.
And perhaps she could.
Absolutely. And that's what she was telling them. And she could. Look, she did.
She did.
Right?
There you go. But look, she stuck it out. And very often, a lot of the reasons why people drop out of a race is because of money. But you just never know which way the wind's going to blow later. Look at Kamala Harris. She dropped out of the presidential race, and now she's vice president. It just
exactly.
It's kind of worked out. Things work out often differently than you expect. I want to say that I think it's very impressive that you would take on the emotional challenge as a method actor to embody the experience that she went through. What was that like?
It was, sometimes it's terrifying. Sometimes it's, I am ready for whatever it takes to bring her character and her emotions, because there are a lot of times when I think she's hurting, and I need to show her hurting because we don't see her as a public figure hurting, right? We see this powerful woman, strong, little toughy kind of woman, she's letting you have it. But there's a lot of pain in Shirley Chisholm. And I had to, as the actor, I had to bring that out in some scenes. And that's why I was saying I had to let go of this person that I knew, that I loved, that I was in awe with. And I had to be the vulnerable person that can hurt, that was losing. She lost her dad, who was the most amazing person in her life. It was a sudden death. What was that like for her to continue? Because he pushed her. He kept telling her, you can do this. You're the tip of the spear, he used to call her. You're the tip of the spear. And that spear is already in flight. So you cannot turn back. And so what was that like when she lost him suddenly?
So you had to find the pain within yourself
Exactly.
to be able to be believable. That's what I find impressive about method actors.
Because that's what we're about. It's the humanity you want. It's not the outside, the surface. We know what it's like when after you've had the cry and after you've, say how much you're hurting, when you have to get back up and get dressed and go back to work. We know that. But what is it like in the private life when the doors close, and what are you feeling? What are you going through? What are your doubts? What are you realizing that you went too far? Maybe I went too far at this, but I can't go back. What is it like when you know that there's the person that was in your life, that's always been in your life, that's always believed in you, is no longer there? How can you move on? What do you say to the public? What do you say to people on those days when you're hurting and when you're doubting what your path is?
Yeah, what do you say? Well, I'm looking forward to watching the full stream of the show. I'm just going to tell the audience again that it's Unbossed, Unbowed, and it's available in streaming video. So they'll go to your website, which is?
If you go to my website is unbossedunbowed.com.
Unbossedunbowed.com.
Or they can go to stellartickets.com, stellar, STELLAR, stellartickets.com, and search for Unbossed, Unbowed, and they'll find it.
Yeah, I'm going to find it. I can't wait to see it. I'm really looking forward to that. Just on the little promo that you did. And brava.
Thank you.
I can tell that you did a good job because you did a good job in that clip. And whoever your editor is, he's almost as good as mine.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Almost.
That's great. And yes, it takes a village. It takes a community of creatives to make something come to fruition and something feel complete and that I'm delighted about. And I'm delighted to share this performance with audiences. And I hope to get back on the stage after COVID and bring the show again to live theater. But for now, I think I'm happy to share what I have right now.
Well, I thank you for that. And I'm so glad that we stumbled upon each other.
Same here.
And it wasn't on Facebook. I'm just saying that's not where you go. I'm trying to tell people, I'm sorry. I'm always pitching these other platforms. So it's the business platforms that artists belong on, because that's where you're going to find your best success. And if anybody wants to come on and challenge me about that, bring it on.
Yeah, I'm not. I agree for sure.
Yeah, you agree, right?
And I've only realized that, it took a while.
Now, it does take a little while, but yeah, that's where we find each other, and that's where we can find our opportunities. It's on LinkedIn and Alignable. Alignable, I think that's what it's called. We found each other on Alignable.
Alignable, yes.
Which is a business platform. Yeah, we just stumbled on each other. And when I saw that you were an actor and I saw the clip, I said, I have to have you on.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, listen, thank you for coming on and sharing everything with my audience. And I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
I love your audience for keep checking on my website, Unbossed and Unbow.com, Unbossed.com, to see what's happening next month and the next month, because I hope to keep sharing this. It would be great for them to just keep following and checking in every now and then to see where it's going to be.
And you and I will keep in touch. I have more for you. I have more questions for you on another platform. And thank you so much, Ingrid Griffith.
Thanks so much, Toni.
Unbossed, Unbowed. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience for now, and I'll see you next time. And as always, I always have an excellent guest to present to you, something that's going to definitely stimulate the cockers of your mind. So goodbye, be well, be safe, be nice. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Energy Stoners Cafe.
Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the internet.